Good morning once again, book lovers of the internet. Welcome or welcome back to my channel. I am Book Nerd 822, and in this video, I am going to be reviewing this book called Strange Houses by Uketsu. Now, I've been meaning to finish this for quite some time. I was abroad and many things got in the way, but I did finish reading it yesterday. Now, this one consists of about 190 pages, and I rated it 3 out of 5 stars. And I bought this one from the Waterstones outlet in Llandudno, Wales. The first chance I got, I was very lucky to find it there straight away. I went with my brother, and it was there waiting for me at Waterstones a couple of months back. If you remember, I reviewed Strange Pictures by the same author, who is also a YouTuber, by the way. Pretty interesting stuff, but 3 out of 5 stars. I will let you know exactly why it is not a higher rating. There will be very few spoilers ahead, but don't worry, there isn't anything too specific that will spoil your fun if you are ever um, thought provoked, I guess, into, well, if you're ever interested in picking this one up. So, I am one of the very first people in the world to have read this book. Of course, it is a very, very recent publication by Pushkin Vertigo, Vertigo Press, and there is also another one on the way called Strange Buildings, by the way. So hopefully this one gets many, many views. I am counting on this video getting many likes and many views because I want to be one of the very first people in the world to speak about this book and be completely honest about it. So yeah, I read it relatively quickly too, although the second part kind of bored me, it kind of dragged on, and contrasted greatly with the suspense and intrigue the first half of the book built. So, towards the start of the book, we got many, many blueprints with regard to um, houses, much like this one, for instance, and as the readers, we were invited to take a look at these blueprints and see what is wrong with the houses. It wasn't too difficult to do, although there were some things which I definitely missed, which then had to be explained by the author, but I felt very immersed, very included, felt as though I was forming a part of the story. So I am really not quite sure how to feel about this one, precisely because of the second part rather than the first part. It started off pretty much like the first one did, where we were given clues and encouraged to think of solutions before being given the answers. As I mentioned, I did feel immersed during the first part, but then the explanation became rather complicated, rather convoluted, and in my honest opinion, silly. Also, much like another reviewer mentioned, it is rather silly, and I will tell you why in just a few seconds. So, I am not much of a superstitious person myself, but getting family members to kill others for you for the sake of money or inheritance because of a belief which makes little sense is hardly realistic. Now, it is perhaps not too difficult to believe that there are people out there who are this superstitious, who are this narrow minded, who don't really have quite a myopic view of the way the world works, and they will believe anything they are told. Extremely gullible people. But this was still rather unrealistic, in my opinion. The way the whole thing was carried out, definitely. Let me know whether or not you agree if you have read this book, by the way. Um, it forced me to wonder how stupid this family truly is, because that is what it mainly revolves around. This family, murders within this family, the left hands of several people being chopped off, or people being born without a left hand, a bit of a tradition, a bit of a cultist sort of thing. So, yeah, that is basically, those are the main themes for the book. So I'm not that good with names, but Uketsu certainly made it easier by including incest as a central theme for this tale. As far as remembering names goes, I mean, I wasn't expecting to find incest as a central theme in any other book except for those forming part of the Song of Ice and Fire series by George R. R. Martin. So I wouldn't say it was a breath of fresh air, but I was definitely startled to find that sort of theme in a book like this. I mean, definitely not something I was prepared for. And I'm rather impressed with how quickly Uketsu's friend managed to come up with a hypothesis for the murders, and he was right for the most part, especially where the blueprints were concerned. And it does make sense considering that Kurihara, Uketsu's friend, is an architect and he understands plenty about houses and interior design. Um, so yeah, I mean, this one was slightly cooler than the first book by Uketsu in the sense that the author is a character within his own novel. I don't think that was the case with the first book. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong in the comment section. But even if that is the case, in this one, he is definitely more involved with the story he is telling. And he is a character in his own book. And Kurihara is a person he knows as well. Not quite sure whether it's a real person or whether it's a person he created and is speaking within the novel, much like Anthony Horowitz does with the Daniel Hawthorne books, basically. So Kurihara is also quite a suspicious person, especially during the final moments of the book. But I'm not going to go into too much detail because that might be a bit of a bigger spoiler. But you would understand what I am trying to get at if you actually do finish reading the book, or just read the final parts of the book. So I rather quickly got confused since this tale goes back several generations and intentions are not always so clear, if I have to be totally honest. Also, the names, even though some of them are easier than others to remember, there are way too many of them. Not quite sure who wants what the intentions are, how people are found out, what um, is destroyed, what isn't, who dies, who doesn't, that sort of thing was kind of hard to keep up. And I would not necessarily refer to this read as memorable, and wouldn't particularly recommend it considering how stupid the reason behind why people are murdered is, but the concept was certainly new to me and helped me understand how to read blueprints better and notice any weird looking rooms which reveal plenty about the architects, the builders, as well as the inhabitants who might be unsuspecting of anything going on. I mean, it certainly helped with my pattern recognition when it comes to seeing blueprints. And the explanation was certainly much more complex than I originally thought it would be. And what I had in mind, and this is just my hypothesis, which in hindsight seems very simple now that I've read the book and thinking about it retrospectively. um, I thought that the left hands would be used for some patients who needed a transplant and perhaps a form of revenge, but all the details got me confused and more immersed in the story. That is where my mixed feelings about this book actually come into play. So I did enjoy the story. I did enjoy how everything tied together, but at the same time, I was confused by the intentions, by all the characters. I found the reason to be rather stupid behind the killings, so that certainly took away from the fun of the story of identifying everything myself, of being the detective. Um, yeah, honestly, if there is some advice I would give the author, it's to be less complicated when it comes to explaining everything, even though it does make sense. I can imagine how fun it must have been for the guy to write such a story, but as a reader, it didn't translate so well. Perhaps that might be a bit of a problem. This was translated into English by Jim Ryan, by the way. Hopefully, it is Ryan, not any other name. But credit to him as well. Might have been a problem with the translation. Perhaps some intentions were lost in translation. Um, so, yeah, those are where my mixed feelings do come in. I enjoyed how all was tied neatly, however, the suspense seems to have persisted. So, even though we do kind of find out everything, all the intentions are explained, there is still suspense going on. There are still things which I am not sure about or still doubtful, or things which might have been removed from the book entirely, intentionally as well. It would be much easier for me to draw conclusions were the name is not in Japanese, but I am rather certain that Kurihara is onto something. He might have a role in all of this as well. To my knowledge, this is the first time that Uketsu actually decided to form part of his own story directly as one of the characters. But do feel free to correct me in the comment section down below if that is not the case. And yeah, using children to conduct murder is certainly a heinous thing to do, and definitely got me thinking about the values of such a family. Honestly reminded me as well of Breaking Bad and Gus Fring using children to do his bidding, there is certainly not a good enough reason to go through all the trouble because of a hoax. But I guess superstitious people um, do exist, people who are this superstitious after all. Um, might not be too much of a far fetched thing to find in society. It forced me as well to think about how stupid superstitious people actually are, and how narrow minded one has to be to go to such extreme measures. Because you believe somebody blindly without conducting your own research. But anyway, I think that is all I had to say about Strange Houses by Uketsu. Once again, and I said this after concluding Strange Pictures as well, I am not quite sure whether I will give this author another go. Um, Not because I was disappointed, but because the reasoning doesn't much make sense. And in a way, my own conclusions were a bit of a let down because it was entirely different to what I anticipated would happen, and things came across as rather far fetched from Uketsu's perspective. So, yeah, I think that is all I had to say. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like, comment, share, subscribe. Take a look at the rest of my content because why not? It's absolutely amazing. Do let me know what you think of Uketsu as an author, whether you follow him on any social media platforms. And yeah, support me everywhere, especially if you support Uketsu as well. I will see you in the next one, hopefully very, very soon. Thank you for watching, and bye, guys.